Hi everybody, welcome to Front Up. I'm Gino Gang, sitting in for Whitey Willauer. And I'm very happy to introduce to Nantucket, Phyliss Slattery. Hello, Phyliss.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Nice to see you again. I've seen you for years.
Right.
You've been out here for, how long have you been here?
Let's see, I think we bought the house in Nantucket maybe 30 years ago as a summer residence. But I have been here now for about 17 to 20 years, full-time.
Full-time, 17 to 20 years. And what do you do out here?
What I do out here is I teach stress management, and I also have been a massage therapist for many years, although I'm doing less and less of that. I did neck and shoulder massage, for instance, with the Nantucket Bank for 10 years.
Specifically for the bank?
Specifically for the Nantucket Bank. They would bring me in once a month to massage all the different people at the bank that wanted to sign up for a 15-minute massage, gratitude from the bank.
Wow.
And then several times a year I would teach maybe 3 or 4 stress management workshops for the bank.
Boy, that's...
I also did the neck and shoulders for Lucille Jordan's
Whoa.
business.
Now, why aren't you doing that anymore?
I'm not doing, first of all, I'm not doing the bank anymore because the bank has dramatically changed
Yes,
as
they
of
have.
several weeks ago,
Right.
being at Bill Horahan's wonderful retirement party. Lucille Jordan sold her business, and real estate isn't exactly what it was.
Right.
So that, and as far as full body massage, being almost 73, I don't do that much anymore with the full body. I do some of it, but I used to take this 40-pound table and throw it around like it was nothing. I had
You still look pretty good, though.
Yes, I am. I mean, I was,
shape.
you know, you guys were talking about being at the gym. I did my Pilates with Lisa Lattes this morning.
Right.
Yeah, so I try. I think what for instance, studying stress management so many years ago, because I graduated from college in '61 after I spent a couple of years in the convent, so I really was a product of the 50s.
The convent?
The convent.
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we can talk about the convent.
What now? How long did that last?
That lasted 3 years. I grew up in Quincy, Massachusetts, south of Boston, and I had the Sisters of St. Joseph in elementary school, which really scared me. I was very afraid of those nuns.
Okay.
But that was way back. I'm sure the Sisters of St. Joseph now are lovely, wonderful people.
Why did they scare you?
Well, I think I was looking at one of my grandchildren recently who's 5. When I was 5 years old, I was in the 1st grade. That was back when we didn't have preschool, you went into the 1st grade and that was your first experience in school. And I can remember the nuns talking about hell. And if you were naughty, which I think I probably was talking too much back then, you would go to hell.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so
Nothing
hell and
scarier
damnation.
than hell. Oh, sure.
Now, when I went to high school in Braintree, Massachusetts, and they had Sisters of Charity of Nazareth, Kentucky, and they laughed, and they played basketball, and they were fun. So I graduated from high school, went to Boston College for 1 year, and then decided that I was going to go be a nun.
Did you know this while you were when did you realize you wanted to be a nun? How old were you?
Probably all through school with sisters. They were always telling you, you might hear the call, you might hear the call.
Oh,
but yeah. I would say it was probably the end of high school and into college that I thought about it. And so I entered the convent.
Did your parents want you to do it?
In Kentucky, no.
Okay.
No, they didn't want. I was the youngest of 3, their only daughter. They didn't want me to go be a nun far away because to them Kentucky was far away.
Did you get the call?
I would say that I was interested enough that I wanted to go be a nun. So that could be considered the call. And
in hindsight, it's kind of hard to look back that far and go, did I really hear it?
No, it really is. But the wonderful thing about it is when I was at Boston College, I talked to a Jesuit over there, and I talked about whether I was going to go in the convent or not. And he also said to me at that time, he said that he believed that some people were called with a temporary vocation. So that obviously if you go in the convent and you feel it's not for you, then you come home. So it wasn't like they were going to get me and I couldn't leave.
Oh, okay.
And actually,
you knew that
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes. And the convent was a wonderful, beautiful, fabulous experience in my life.
Where was it?
Nazareth, Kentucky, which
Oh,
is
okay, I see.
outside of Louisville.
Right.
And I was
Beautiful
there
area.
for 3 years. And what happened was after 3 years, it was time to make final vows. We had made temporary vows, and then it was time to make final vows. And when they said, we're going to now prepare you for final vows, I said, excuse me? I think I'm going to go home. The final, and I went home. But I would back up for a minute to tell you that where I was in Louisville, Kentucky, Sisters of Charity of Nazareth, was at a college, and there were a lot, at that time the nuns in Louisville were educating a lot of women from South America. So when I entered the convent, I was going to college during those years,
Right.
within the convent. It was just a beautiful, wonderful experience. It's still with me. I mean, Sister Mary Xavier is still in there somewhere.
So you're a
Right.
practicing Catholic.
I'm a practicing Catholic, yes, but
There's always that but with the Catholics.
well, with the Catholics, I
Just kidding.
You know, I know, but I hear people say, you know, hi, my name is Mary. I'm a recovering Catholic. So,
yeah, well, yeah.
and I
yeah.
mean, I have a lot of issues with the hierarchy of the church.
All right.
And I believe I have friends on Nantucket who have brought me to their temples, Jewish friends. When I was in Bangkok, I went to the temples in Bangkok. So I believe this.
Sounds like you might be a Unitarian.
Listen, I'm happy. You know, it's all
Sure.
we're all. I feel.
Sure.
And-
So take us from that point to stress management. You were saying that
Yes.
you were working out. Obviously you feel that
Right.
you can control stress by exercise. Is that
That's one of the tools.
That's one of them.
That's one of the tools.
Talk to us more about that.
What happened was I went back to school and finished my education at Boston College. Taught the first grade for several years. Became married, became a mother, had a group of children, and my first child was born with severe brain damage. And subsequent to having all these children, I'm going off in my mind. I got into stress management because of the fact that I had a mother who had a cardiac condition. I had 5 children. My firstborn, as I said, was born with severe brain damage. He was in a wheelchair. So
Yeah,
I was
so-
feeling somewhat stressed myself.
Okay.
And I read about this wonderful physician in Boston, Dr. Herbert Benson. And he was giving a lecture at Harvard Medical. And I got on the T from the South Shore and went in to see him. And I was just dazzled by him. I was fascinated by everything he knew. I had my degree in education. I had to go up. I'm one of those people. I had to go up and say hello to him afterwards, tell him how I loved it. Told him my mother was a cardiac patient. Benson is a cardiologist. And he said, I'm doing a program for people with cardiac problems. Why don't you bring your mother? I said, she's too sick. He said, why don't you come? So it was a 12-week program at that time at New England Deaconess Hospital. I went for 12 weeks, and subsequent to that 12 weeks, my dear son, who was handicapped, died. And I eventually went back to study more. Stress isn't a big enough word for anyone who loses a child.
Oh, right.
But I went back and I did another program. And at the end of the program, Benson's staff came to me and they said, you have a degree in education. We think with your life experiences that you would be great teaching Benson's program, because at that time he was starting to educate teachers, nurses, etc. And I was like Woody Allen. I'm like, do they mean me? I mean, I had been in the house with 5 kids, you know. I knew I had a degree in education, but believe me, if I was coloring with the kids and they wanted to turn the page, forget it. I wasn't ready.
Right.
So that was my whole life. And I did. I went back and I did the training, and that's how I got into teaching stress management.
All right. Tell us a little bit about that.
Stress management, according to Herbert Benson, who was the cardiologist, and Benson is one of the pioneers in the mind-body field. He is now, obviously, affiliated with the Nantucket Cottage Hospital because of our affiliation. And he was here recently giving a lecture. So I did the work with him probably 25, 28 years ago. Stress management is a whole body of work that Benson has put together according to his program. And what he says is, I have a toolbox I will give you to help you with your stress. Now, you know, what happens when we become stressed? We feel the fight or flee syndrome. The fight or flee syndrome is an innate experience that protects us against a threat. Now, in modern day society, unlike when it was the tiger tooth coming after us, that now I might be stressed doing this, for instance. Public speaking is number 3 on the stress scale, coming only after death and divorce. It might be a boss, your boss, it might be a coworker, it might be a family member. So what do we do with this? We can't do fight, we can't attack, even though sometimes we might want to, and we can't run like hell away from these people or these experiences. So what do we do with it? So when we feel the fight or flee syndrome within our body, there's a whole toolbox, as Benson calls it, that we can call upon. The first is the breath. I mean, we heard someone today when you were interviewing, take a deep breath. The breath is a fabulous technique that we have with us. It's always with us. And when you completely exhale, if you take a breath and you completely, it's the body's natural way of relaxing. So that's one of the techniques.
But you have to remind the body to do that.
You have to remind it. But somebody said to someone here today when you were recording, take a deep breath. But when you become aware of it, now when I teach a workshop, for instance, I'll say to people, most of people drive. So every time you put the key in the ignition, say to yourself, I'm just going to take a deep breath. Or when you experience the fight or flee syndrome, you know you're having it. Your heart rate's beating, your respiration increases, your muscle tones tense. And the idea being, if you either had to fight or flee, you had to use these large muscle masses in your body to either run or fight. The blood is taken away from the brain. That's when we can't think straight. You know, when you get stressed, you can't find your keys, you don't know what you want to say.
Right.
So the breath is a fantastic, that's just a beginning
What's another one?
about. Another technique is cognitive restructuring. And that means, how do you think? Are you a pessimist? Are you always thinking negatively? Are you an optimist? What do you hear in here? Now, for instance, in my family growing up, Benson would say, listen, what are your old tapes that stress you? Now, my father was a great one to tell everyone, the Red Sox, the Bruins, my mother, myself, how can you be so stupid? You know, you do something, and my father was always like, how could you be so stupid?
Right.
So I recognized when I was studying with Benson that that was one of my old tapes. Now, that's not going to help me any. So what do I do with that? You can replace an old tape that you might hear by a positive affirmation. Now, I couldn't go from how can you be so stupid to I'm brilliant. So I use the affirmation, daily I am growing in intelligence. Now, it's many, many, many years later, as I said. I never hear that. I never hear that old tape. So you begin to recognize what are your old tapes. Now, for instance, you could hear an old tape about anything in your life. I can't do this, I can't handle this, I'm overwhelmed. That doesn't help you deal with whatever the problem is. You can replace that tape with, I'm strong, I can handle this, I can do this. And that a short affirmation is a short positive statement that you repeat to yourself.
How
especially.
often?
You can repeat it anytime you get the negative. So if you hear that negative self-talk, you know, I can't handle this, I can't do this. You say to yourself, I'm going to replace this with my affirmation. Benson suggests that you write it down, you put it in your car, you put it in your mirror in the bathroom.
You know, I hate to go back to this, but, you know, it reminds me of Saturday Night Live.
Right.
Stuart Smalley.
Right, yeah, Stuart Smalley, he was great.
I mean, but that was funny.
Right,
but
it's true.
it's actually effective.
Now, the other, when you talk about being funny, the other one who has worked with Benson, and now she's out on her own, and a lot of people have seen her on Channel 2, Loretta LaRoche. I want to grow up and be Loretta. She's a laugh therapist. And she says things. She says things like, "Now listen." She is a riot. She says, "Now listen. You hear these people. You hear them." She said, "Just pretend you're on the bus. Pull over the bus and tell them to get out. Get out. Get off my bus." Because a lot of us can identify where that old tape comes from. And then there's another part of cognitive restructuring that I worked with a woman on Nantucket, in fact, who said, I don't hear any old tapes like that. But this particular woman, self-employed, ran a business. Every once in a while, she would do so much and work so hard that she would be in bed with migraine headaches, periodically. So she didn't hear the old tapes, but she had an old belief system from her parents that you work 24/7 practically. So we had to work with that, and she recognized that when we talked about it, that, you know, why do you work so hard? This person happened to be single, she had no children, but she got the attitude from her parents who had 3 children growing up in the Depression, that you have to work 24/7. She didn't have to. So it might be an attitude we've picked up, so that we have to restructure our thinking around something
so
like
this
that.
toolbox, which you meant earlier, you mentioned. So you got breathing and these affirmations.
Right.
That you,
And exercise is another. Exercise is another one. The exercise...
Because the body-mind thing?
Right, the body... Well, exercise produces the endorphins. The endorphins make us feel good. The endorphins create the feel-good that gets us
would
up and
maybe
going.
allow you to
Well,
say, hey, I can beat this.
Right, and not only that, it just makes us feel good. You come out, you know, now I went to Lisa Latte's this morning, which I'm a dropout from Pilates, so now I'm going back. Because what happens, I mean, if I don't exercise, my mental state is not so great, and I know that the endorphins are a physiological response that can make me feel better. And also the endorphins help with any kind of pain that you have.
Wow.
So that exercise is such a difference. And I know for me, it's just wonderful. It keeps us going.
Yeah.
It's great. So you've got the exercise, which are producing the endorphins.
Right.
You've got the breath, you've got the cognitive restructuring, laughter. Laughter is another fabulous, fabulous tool. Now, when I do the workshops, and I have some with me if you want to try them before we end this, I give out the red noses.
Sure, let's. You mean right now we could do it?
Yeah, they're in that blue.
Let me.
Just grab that blue.
I'm hooked up here, but this
that
thing right
blue
here.
Bag, yes. So anyway.
Yeah, let's try one.
So
of these.
anyway, laughter.
See this.
Laughter not only makes us feel good. We connect to other people. They say laughter is the shortest distance between 2 points. All right.
Yep.
But the laughter also creates the endorphins, so you feel good. Right. The laughter ups the function of the T cells, which fight off infection. So it's all good stuff. So I hand these out. I got these from Loretta LaRoche, and you know, you see these around. But it's very interesting.
I mean, is this part of what you do? Like if you show up to a stress management thing, you're bringing these things with you?
I always do it. I do a workshop, I bring the red noses, and everybody, we put on our red noses. Now, how's that? Is that good? I mean, you have to laugh. You get a group of people together with their red noses.
Eventually, somebody's going to break the ice here, and it's going to erupt.
Yeah, no, you get into laughter.
Sure,
and the other part
fun.
of it is, what you can do, I'm going to speak to you for a minute. The other part of it is that you don't even have to be with other people. I mean, say I keep one of these in my car, all right? Now, even when I'm going to, if I'm going to exercise, right, I don't want to do it. I woke up, I'm grumpy, I'm tired. I get in the car, I said, oh my God, there's my red nose. I put my red nose on, I'm driving down the street. Now, I live across the street from Chris Whitty. So Chris Whitty calls me up one day and he said, what was going on? I see you driving down the street with this red nose on, right? So we can laugh at ourselves.
It seems like 100 years since I reached out to dry those tears.